You have not seen what I have seen.
What did you say?
You have not seen what I have seen.
What?
You have not seen what I have seen.
Go away! You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. Murderer. Leave now and never come back. No! Leave now and never come back! Leave now and never come back!
So I just finished watching The Rings of Power, and it's a fucking disgrace. It's an insult to Tolkien's legacy. It's an insult to the fans of his work. It's an insult to anyone who has an actual brain, ears, and eyes that see.
You have not seen.
Piss off, I'll get to you in a minute. I just can't quite comprehend what a vile and garbage show this is, and how much the showrunners really shit the bed with this one. They had infinite resources, and the story planned out for them in its entirety. All they had to do was just follow the source material and take the easy win. But they couldn't do that, could they? So many bad things plague this show, but the most egregious aspects would have to be three in particular. It's boring, it makes no sense, and it's a politically motivated clusterfuck. This show is so boring. The plot is boring, the characters are boring, the dialogue is boring, even the fucking fight scenes are boring. It's truly incredible how boring the show is. In my opinion, there's nothing worse than a boring movie or TV show. Bad media is preferable to boring because at least it's either entertaining or hilarious or both.
Thanks, nurse.
Do you like what you see?
I love what I see.
Would you like to go out with me?
Yes, I would.
Would you like to fuck me?
Bingo.
Doesn't interest me. Nothing there.
Nothing there? Just exactly what would interest you? Something the size of a jumbo jet?
The Rings of Power is neither entertaining nor so bad it's hilarious. I have trouble staying awake half the time when I'm watching it. I'm not even a little bit invested in the plot or characters. I could care less about any of them. The tragic thing is, this show is set during the Second Age of Middle-earth, where so many fascinating events occurred. Some that altered and shaped the very history of Middle-earth, and I'm complaining about this show being boring. Why is the show focusing on made-up characters and stories that are far less interesting and compelling than the original source material? When are we not going to focus on made-up characters like some sociopathic hobbits? When are things going to get interesting? This brings me to my next point. Overall, this show does not make any sense in the universe Tolkien created. This show changes, alters, twists, and corrupts so much of Tolkien's work that it's a stretch to even call it a show based on the books. And while the Lord of the Rings trilogy did sometimes stray away from the books, it was mainly due to limitations caused by transferring a trilogy of books into a trilogy of movies. And Peter Jackson and everyone who helped make those beautiful films got the majority of what they could right, with only a few alterations to the book canon. They respected Tolkien's work and wanted to make the most accurate version of The Lord of the Rings as possible. These showrunners don't give a shit about the pre-existing lore or what message and meaning Tolkien was trying to get across with his writings. This is evident by the grossly altered plot points and characters. The original timeline is completely thrown to the wind. This show takes events and characters that are separated by thousands of years in the real canon and condenses them into a convoluted mess of a timeline. The creation of the Rings of Power, the supposed main plot of this show, occurs thousands of years before the downfall of Numenor. We shouldn't be jumping back and forth between Celebrimbor getting ready to make the rings and Galadriel on Numenor interacting with Isildur. It's literally impossible for all of this to be happening at the same time. Galadriel was never hunting Sauron in the north, she never set foot on Numenor, and she ended up getting married to Celeborn, with them having a daughter. Apparently Celeborn is missing or presumed dead. What? Where is Galadriel's daughter? What about her other brother? And apparently everyone just teleports everywhere. Ship voyages that should take at the very least several weeks take like a single day. People can ride from Mordor to Eregion in less than a week. Galadriel swims thousands of miles in open ocean in a matter of like a half a day. And Halbrand just simply walks into Mordor. Sorry, Boromir. I really don't get why the showrunners and writers did this. Why condense thousands of years of characters and events into like a 20-year span? You could have easily stayed true to the source material and then gradually introduced Numenor in later seasons. Even something as simple as the Palantir has been changed into a touch it and see the future MacGuffin. That's not what it's used for. It's used to communicate with other Palantirs over long distances. In the show, they say all but one of them are lost, but none of them are lost in the real canon. They all get brought over to Middle-earth and placed in and around the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor. I mean, for Christ's sake, Saruman communicates with Sauron with a Palantir throughout the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. How could the showrunners make such a simple mistake? The show also makes up all kinds of shit like names, words, songs, origins, even fucking mithril, a material that has already been discovered and has been around for a long time in the real canon, has some weird origin story made up that involves a tree, a Balrog of Morgoth, and a Silmarillion.
What?
This is such a bizarre way to add new things to the show that didn't need to be changed. The characters and factions are even further dragged through the shit compared to the events. The writers have completely and utterly destroyed the character of Galadriel. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I mispronounced that. I meant Galadriel. She is literally one of the most unlikable characters I have seen in media in a long time. She's arrogant, rude, entitled, standoffish, lacks any form of patience or humility, and behaves more like a rebellious teenager than an actual enlightened being who has been around for thousands of years. House of the Dragon has an actual teenage girl protagonist, and she behaves with more class and dignity than Galadriel. She's a horrible military commander, she sucks at diplomacy, and instead of calmly asking for help, she threatens violence to foreigners who seem uneasy around her to begin with. It's a horrible assassination of her character due to political reasons that I'll discuss later in the video. The Numenorians, you poor bastards, used to be 8 feet tall, hundreds of year-old badasses who were practically gods among men, with a military so powerful that even Sauron himself feared. Now you're reduced to a bunch of short, fat, discount Gerard Butlers, or some whiny kids who need to be taught how to fight by Galadriel. This is inexcusable. The Numenorians are one of the coolest aspects of the Second Age, and this show ruins that completely. Where is Isildur's brother, Anarion? You know, the one who helps create the city of Minas Arnor, later renamed Minas Tirith? Why was he replaced by a sister who contributes what to the story? Isildur is a whiny, distracted, unsure of himself boy who in the real canon is a strong leader and a powerful warrior who even cuts the ring from Sauron's hand. Why did they have to make him a daydreaming idiot? I mean, Halbrand acts more like a real Isildur than this Isildur. Speaking of Sauron, Sauron is literally the hero of this show. Instead of being called Sauron the Deceiver, he should be called Sauron the Truthsayer. He literally does nothing evil or villainous throughout the entire season, shows compassion to various people, rescues Galadriel at sea, and then helps in forging the Rings of Power. And you know what Galadriel does? She immediately tries to murder him. All the new characters introduced are also worse versions of existing characters in The Lord of the Rings. You got female Frodo and Sam, discount Aragorn, discount Legolas, discount Gimli, homeless Gandalf, discount Galadriel. The list goes on and on. I hate the Harfoots. They're a bunch of dirty assholes that are the furthest you can get from true hobbits. They abandon their own people who are injured, ill, weak, or just can't keep up, have a nice big belly laugh about someone who gets stung to death by bees, and even condemns a family with a child because one of them has a somewhat minor foot injury. The fucking orcs, who are by far the best thing in this show, actually show some mercy and cry for their dead, while the Harfoots abandon their family and friends and laugh about it afterward. They actually have a song about how no one gets left behind, but then they have a book with all the people who were left behind. These are not hobbits. They will never become hobbits. They're just nostalgia-driven bait to appeal to the masses. The dialogue in this show is also atrocious, something that the original Lord of the Rings trilogy nailed perfectly.
Soon the sun will set. Do your part. You shall see it rise again.
Find the light, and the shadow will not find you.
And speaking of dialogue, why the fuck does everyone have to over-enunciate every name in Middle-earth?
We left Valinor. 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 They called him Sauron. Sauron. Our Lord Sauron.
You don't have to put so much fucking flair on it. You can just simply say Numenor. Keep an ear out. Next season, they'll start saying Mordor. Now, moving on to the political chamber pot, which is the modern movie and TV industry. Everything is a nostalgia trip, or girls rule and boys drool. Nowadays, we can't have strong, intelligent, likable heroes that are both men and women who aren't perfect and will stumble and fail now and again, but ultimately learn from their mistakes and experiences which they use to overcome the odds and win the day. Nope. This show continues to promote the strong, independent women who are more like video game characters with max stats than actual women. Gotta shoehorn strong female characters into the plot like strong female Galadriel, strong female hobbits, strong female Númenórean queen, strong female Southling lady, strong female Númenórean girl, strong female dwarf. It all feels forced and contrived just to meet a quota. Speaking of forced, we need to talk about the various diversity decisions made for this show. Every single faction, regardless of race, culture, or where they're located regionally in Middle-earth, have multiple ethnicities regardless if it makes any sense in the canon. The showrunners had the perfect opportunity to include people of color in a way that wouldn't feel contrived, with the inclusion of the Easterlings and Haradrim factions. Not much is known about these factions, which gives the opportunity to flesh out these cultures with it still fitting the original material. It would have allowed us to explore new places and peoples that Tolkien originally created, giving us fans something new, exciting, and believable. Instead, the Rings of Power just takes the easy route and copy and paste every faction regardless if it makes sense regionally for Middle-earth. Let our fantasy be fantasy. If our fiction reflects all of the real-world bullshit, it becomes less fantasy and more about sending a message, rather than entertaining people with an engaging plot and characters. If you're always trying to be politically correct, it ultimately detracts and diminishes the story you're trying to tell. So, that's what I think about the Rings of Power Season 1. What are your thoughts? You like it, hate it, or in between? Leave your comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching.